Hi and welcome to Dynamics Update. We have a new episode today from sunny Slovenia at the DynamicsMinds, and with me as usual, Gustav Sundblad.
Hello everyone, how are you this sunny morning in Slovenia?
I'm a bit tired. It got a bit late.
Yeah.
And you can hear it from my voice as well. So but otherwise it's fine.
It's amazing. We also have a guest here in the room. That's fantastic. Hello, Patrick. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for inviting me again.
Thank you. Second time, exactly. Patrick Mouwen, commerce hero, I would say. Community commerce hero.
Don't overdo it.
We set the expectations high.
Yeah. No, but I mean, Patrick, you are here and you had a presentation on MCP and the Commerce APIs. We're going to talk about that shortly. But you're also known for doing what Microsoft should have done from the start, really, like documenting all of the Commerce CSU APIs. So that's a real contribution. That's why I use the hero term, right? But it's a huge contribution. I've used it. I know a lot of people who use it. It makes life easier. So that's we're really thankful for that. But tell us about your session here and what you're doing in Slovenia.
Yeah, so commerce is unfortunately a bit understated on this conference.
Yeah.
So I was happy to jump in. And my session was actually about Commerce MCP. So Microsoft currently have Commerce MCP in private preview.
Yeah.
But if you look at it, it's only a very, very tiny subset of the APIs that are actually exposed as tools.
Yeah.
As per that, Commerce MCP. It's only 9 tools out of 650 operations.
Yeah.
It's kind of a pity, and it's not moving fast as it seems, because in the previous version there were only 8 tools, and the version before 6. So
yeah.
Because I'm always looking into the latest code. I have been looking into the V48 preview.
Yeah.
But already last year we were working on an alternative, and in a nutshell, and we can go into more detail if you want. But in a nutshell, we are actually using Azure API Management as a facade layer, as a publishing layer for most of our clients' APIs.
Yeah.
And that includes Commerce, but also other
IVS and other APIs.
Even non-Microsoft.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And what I demonstrated in my demo was that if you do that properly, following best practices that are out there in the market, layer by layer, from DTO to API to MCP, etc., and also the system prompting on the agent level, then you are able to actually use Azure API Management both for your API publishing as well as for MCP. Yeah,
so basically it converts, to make it simple, right? It converts the API, the well-documented API, notwithstanding, to an MCP, to the MCP protocol, really. So it can be leveraged in agent scenarios, right? That's really cool.
100%.
Yeah.
But back to your point, you sneaked it into your sentence, right?
Yeah.
The documentation is key.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that features GA has been introduced Jan this year, GA by Microsoft for Azure API Management. But we started using it already last year when it was in preview or in beta. And it works really well.
Yeah.
Of course, if you want to have a full-blown MCP server fully in control, this could be an option.
Yeah.
You can also, of course, host a proxy MCP server behind Azure API Management. But what we demonstrated was that we just took the Commerce APIs, and we had a set of 40, and also some F&O APIs for address updates. We wrapped that into one API with the 40 operations in API Management. Then we used the conversion, as you outlined, to publish an MCP server from the same
APIs,
APIM instance.
Yeah.
And then we started leveraging or actually consuming that from Claude Desktop.
Yeah.
We also tried Copilot Studio with the GPT engine, but the results were a bit disappointing.
Okay. Was it because of the model, do you think, or did you try out using the Claude model within Copilot Studio? Because then, you would, in theory, at least get similar results as with Claude, but that's not everyone has those activated, of course, in their tenant. So that's
I can't really judge. I was under time pressure, but I think one of the decisive factors was the model.
Yeah.
Because we struggled in Copilot Studio, we struggled to get it working with actual workflows.
I get it. Yeah.
If you ask a more sophisticated question, like, okay, I want this item to be added to a new cart, but at the same time, same prompt.
Yeah.
Pick my last 4 sales orders, aggregate the lines or the line quantities, so that lines are not duplicated or item IDs don't end up on different lines.
No.
And then add them to the same card. That's a lot of API requests, right, behind MCP tools. But in Copilot Studio, it was very difficult to get that working.
Yeah, because it
got stuck.
It got stuck and it didn't select the correct APIs and the correct sequence, right? Because that would be my concern. My concern about MCP and agents in general is that kind of in these use cases where it's very deterministic, you want the customer to be able to place the order at the correct price and so forth. So it's a perfect fit for an API and a front end where you really control what the customer is doing, right? Prompting it, I would imagine that's the challenge, right? Even if you convert it to MCP, you have to be very clear about the skills and the instructions and the guardrails. So what was your experience there and in the trials with using an agent with Commerce APIs?
Yeah, maybe for the audience also so good to give some tangible
exactly, your examples,
cases. Yeah, so what we demonstrated as well was a scenario where a call center employee was actually working on behalf of a B2B customer and switched during the session.
Mm-hmm.
So the agent was actually impersonating, right, a B2B user, and then acting on behalf of it. So we took, for example, a quotation document that was sent out to the customer, 50-line document, and the agent could read the content and then automatically create a card, add to cart, prepare the card basically, and then either the call center agent the call center employee could actually finish it and check it out. So that was basically quote document to order conversion, or it could prepare the card and then dispatch it back to the client.
Yeah, so to finalize the flow basically.
To B2B user and then finalize it.
Yeah.
So back to your point, guardrails are really important because you want to have predictive outcomes, right, in an enterprise environment. That's where we experimented.
Yeah.
Because you can do a lot in the system prompt. So if you go into Copilot Studio and then the agent definition, then you can write a prompt. But the longer it gets, so the more instructions,
the more
the
risky,
slower it will be. Because I learned on this conference, actually not during experimenting, but being here, that the full instruction set is always consumed by the model with every prompt, every action that it takes. So it's a high token consumption, and it's not performant.
No, exactly.
And that's what we found out, but we didn't have an answer. The only thing we ended up doing is moving to Claude Desktop. And luckily we minimized the instructions at that level. And then I found out that if we put more metadata in the MCP tool definition, so one layer down, then it's actually much more performant.
Yes, and also from a token consumption perspective.
Token consumption is better as well. And at this conference, again, I learned that there is a sixth layer. So we were actually working from 5 layers of
mystical
metadata.
Sixth layer,
And the sixth layer are the skills.
Yeah, exactly.
And what I learned is that skills are not consumed every single time the action is actually executed. But it's occasionally. So when the agent finds out, I need this skill now, then it's loading it. So that's much more efficient, and in the next iteration, you will probably try to leverage
the problem also is that it loads the skills into the context window, and eventually the context window will be purged or compressed, and then it will lose some of the skills, and hopefully it will understand that it needs to read them again. But it might be. But I'm triggering on what you said about reading like a quotation document, because these are the things that AI is perfect for, understanding human text and sentences and words and whatever. When you need to do a workflow, they are usually maybe not as predictable as a script or as a Power Automate flow or something else that you can actually make very descriptive.
Yeah, very, very strong point, because what I found out as well with Commerce, when you are customer facing, it's different than when you use the MCP server internally. If somebody is fiddling around with the Dynamics MCP server, then it's not really a big deal. If some things happen, of course, it can have big impact.
You can control it with security roles.
As customer facing, you're talking about your brand. You're talking about your reputation.
Exactly.
And maybe you picked it up yesterday, but I could even ask technical questions.
Yeah, you can describe exactly.
How does it work?
Is there a workaround? Can you give me a zero price? Exactly. Yeah.
So and that's the point where the instructions come in. So the metadata at the various layers are so important. And back to the use cases. What I really liked, but that's more into the call center scenario, is that the agent, without asking, was actually spotting a lot of master data issues.
Yeah, exactly. You mentioned as well the address. That was really cool, and you can get those fixed. But then you were actually using the Dynamics ERP connectors, right, to go in and fix the address, or the APIs in Commerce.
So since all the data is actually staged, right, in the CSU database, the address information as well.
You can change it there.
Yeah, but we decided because in Commerce there are basically two options to update the address information in the backend. You can do it asynchronously or synchronously. Yeah. We decided to do it synchronously because in a lot of client contexts, there are multiple systems updating addresses, and then the actuality.
It might get conflicts,
it's really important.
Update conflicts. And what I like about this entire scenario is not only your demo, but from a commerce perspective, is that commerce in itself, in the application, is really, lockdown is the wrong word, but it's context sensitive, right? So you have all of these APIs and you have all these checks and balances on what an employee is allowed to do, what an application is allowed to do, and what you're really doing is just adding the MCP layer to handle the interaction here, but the security and the checks are still there, because again, my worry here that, as you mentioned as well, if you have an agent and you don't have that control, it can wreak havoc on both your brand and your ordering, because you might get incorrect prices. You've seen horror stories of people cheating the agents by fooling them and then getting a discount that they're not allowed to get, right? But in this scenario, that wouldn't really be an agent problem. That would be a configuration problem on your end. You've set it up incorrectly because you allow people to do overrides that you should not allow them to do. So as long as you have your commerce set up properly in place, which is a completely MCP agnostic thing, right? Then you can enable APIM on top and then using APIM. So how much did you have to kind of massage the APIs to get it working properly in MCP?
So not too much. Yeah? So your question is really good, but it has a lot of lefts and rights. Yeah. So let's start at the basic level. If you look at the 650 operations that I called out earlier, they're not technically documented. You can extract a swagger from the CSU, but it's a technical swagger. Well, what I mean by that is, if you do a commerce product search, for example, or search by criteria, you can have various requests for the same API. Yeah. You can search by item ID, you can search by record ID, you can search by condition, all on top of the same API. Yeah. So it's very important, especially for an LLM, to understand, if I take this request for the same API, what is my output? And what can I do with the output? What are my subsequent steps? So it starts with having the API well documented, and that's missing already. Yeah. So if you compare to a mock architecture, right? So API first, the headless architecture, etc. They benefit because from the ground up, when these APIs are defined, they're well documented. Yeah. Go to the Shopify website, for example, you will find them. Very
Klarna, there's a lot of those examples. Yeah.
So converting that to MCP is a piece of cake. Yeah. But if your APIs are basically designed to serve dynamic software, like
it's already
the Dynamics
integrated,
platform and the Dynamics POS, and there was no need to actually document
exactly.
And
because there was always
they weren't supposed to be used by anything else.
It was just an internal use. Yeah. I heard the same discussion yesterday, because I talked to one of the Microsoft guys who were here, and we talked about X++ development. And when he mentioned that when he was taught to develop X++, they would say that take the label text and put it in the description field for that entity in the X++, because you never used it anyway. You just need a descriptive text. Yeah. But now it's like the more text you put into the description of the field, the better the MCP will be able to tell the LLM what it actually can do with the field.
Exactly. That is spot on what is required.
Because the description is no longer for people to read.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's for an LLM to read.
Yes. So we are this was kind of a negative angle, now the positive angle.
Yeah, exactly.
Because the framework of commerce is so fundamentally strong.
Yeah.
The security is really good because if you take a customer role, which is baked into every API which supports customer interaction, then it automatically filters all the data out which is not relevant to customer context.
Exactly.
Right? So it's not solely you giving you access, it gives you a specific context, contextual access. That's exactly what you want in an LLM scenario.
Yeah, exactly.
You never want the customers or the data from customer A to be in the hands of customer B.
No, that's what I mean. The controls are already there, and like the context is there as well. I am a customer. Okay, great. I am a customer. From an agent perspective, that makes total sense. Yeah.
So security-wise, it's really strong. Performance-wise, the CSU is really strong.
Yeah.
There are lots of APIs, right? It has a broad coverage. It's fantastic, actually. The only thing that was missing, as we just pointed out, was the metadata.
Yeah.
But if you look into the DLLs of commerce, right? So you go into the DLLs, you would decompile them, which I normally do because I want to know
you can
everything.
see. Yeah, exactly.
At the nitty-gritty detail level. Then you see that the labels that you were referring to, they are there. So there is an entities DLL. If you unravel it, you will find it. And you just have to extract that metadata, which is not done. So that it could be an idea.
It's a pointer to Microsoft, exactly. Yeah, they already have the data. They just need to kind of give it to exactly.
The only what they don't have is these specific request response patterns and what they do, and that's even more important.
Yeah.
So I call that. So my layer one, if I take the layered model that I presented here, the first layer is the DTO layer. It's the object layer. So if you have a product, the product is is 50 properties, for example. The labels that we just referred to, those are sitting in the entity, the DLL, right? So they are there. The product definition itself, fine. So at DTO level, we have the information. It's only not exposed. Then if you go one level up, the API itself, we don't have much metadata baked in to the CSU, unfortunately. So what I saw, now Microsoft are actually working on that Commerce MCP. It is hard-coded in the CSU.
Yeah.
And they now add that metadata
into what's exposed,
which wasn't there. Because the tools need it.
Yeah, exactly.
The only downside is that if you leverage that second layer as a customer, your hands are quite tight because it's software as a service.
Yeah.
So you would need a code update through Microsoft, or there would be extensibility at some point in the near future. But even then, you would need a code iteration, a code deployment.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is not ideal in an agent world, because you need a lot of iterations to optimize the other layers as well. So what we did is we actually lifted that over to Azure API Management, and then you're in control. Yeah. Because then you can manipulate the Open API spec completely, and you can put your tool descriptions in there.
Yeah. No, but that's relevant. I mean, for anyone using APIs, regardless if they only have the CSU, using API management and kind of exposing all of your APIs in a canonized format across the organization is a good tip for anyone who's not doing it anyway, not regardless of the CSU. But what you're saying is that it also opens up capabilities for you to describe the APIs in a way that's more than out of the box Microsoft, right?
100%. So it works for F&amp APIs. Custom APIs, Dataverse APIs, inventory visibility, name it, non-Microsoft, maybe even SAP. Yeah. You could even build it agnostic, that the MCP servers are no longer system-oriented, because now we have an MCP for Dataverse, MCP, right? Yeah. But they're domain-oriented. Yeah. I've got an MCP server for card handling, I've got one for fulfillment,
exactly.
one for customer management. Yeah. Agnostic of the systems, which are actually delivering or providing the data.
Yeah, that's what I loved about your presentation as well. You went into that kind of best practice. It's hard to say best practice because it might differ, of course, but that domain split where you might have 60 APIs in total covering your business, but for performance reasons, security reasons, many like just understanding what you're doing reasons, it's a good tip to divide them into domains, as you mentioned, parts, and then it doesn't really matter if it's 3 systems underneath or 1 system underneath. It makes total sense to do that division from a manageability perspective. That was a really good tip, I think.
Yeah, so we are all learning, right?
Yeah.
And I learned a lot here as well from others, which we could have done better. But I'm already very happy with the result, because we deliberately capped the number of tools to 30, 40 in this case. But I unticked a few, so the agent was actually working with 30.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite the maximum.
Yeah.
Because over 30, it starts to hallucinate, and it starts to do things that and it's slower.
But I think also if you go higher in the number of tools, you also need to restrict it more in form of skills and system prompts, and you need to give it more detailed. I mean, because if you look at the regular toolbox, there are things that basically from a abstract level does exactly the same, but they don't do exactly the same because they do slightly different things. And in order to be able to use this tool, you need to know when is this tool applicable instead of this one.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing here, that the description in the skills and the description in the tools will probably hint at the model that if you're going to do this specific operation, then this tool is the optimal one. And if you have a more generic description, then that won't happen. You won't end up in a situation where it deterministically can choose the correct tool.
Yeah. So my advice, 100% agreed with what you just said, is keep the number of tools per MCP server limited.
Yeah.
Ensure that you optimize your metadata for each.
Yeah.
And exactly as you state, when you consume it, you can have multiple MCP server connections, but ensure that the agent is constructed in a way that it knows what to call when. Yeah. And then the multi-agent setup, right, with sub-agents can also be very useful there. Yeah. So in larger configurations, I think for my demo it wasn't even required.
No, that was a simple use case, right? Yeah. Or not a simple use case, but exactly what you say. It goes from the MCP. It's kind of like object-oriented. It's the same approach we always had to take, right? Group whatever logical components you have into manageable pieces. Yeah. Same with agents. If you have an agent, it's better to group it into a sub-agent that has a clear purpose and task. We did the Minecraft presentation, right? So we had one agent scanning for quotes and then connecting to Minecraft. I had much better output when we split it up. So the one agent actually scanned the quotes and then passed off work to the sub-agent. And you could do it in one, but then you run a higher risk of the agent not mixing things up and trying to do things with another MCP server. So it just goes across the board, right? Try to split things up and ensure I have an agent taking orders. I have an agent answering questions about orders. Perhaps those should be split, right? Because it makes sense.
Yeah, but that's also at the same time it's making it really complex because there are so many parameters which can influence performance or token usage. Yes. And I think the next stage of AI adoption is not about getting things working or getting things done. The next stage is to optimize cost, right? Definitely. And to optimize performance, because that was one of the initially, maybe a good story to tell. I recorded all my demos, not only because I didn't trust the Wi-Fi, but also because I wasn't so sure about the performance. But then, actually on Monday, so a day before my session, I learned a lot of stuff, which we already implemented by updating and tweaking. Yeah. So I was working until 12:30 the day before my session. And then I found out I'm now at the stage that it's performing so well, and I can ask literally any question. I'm not gonna show my recording. I will do it live. I just make notes in my WhatsApp, so I sent myself a message that I could follow that prompt as some kind of guideline and then see.
It worked perfectly. No guts, no glory. But but it worked perfectly in the demo at least. I was sitting in the audience, so I saw it. It's a very good demo.
So that proves that. So with only a 1 day time span and a lot of iterations during the day, you can make huge progress. So the flexibility, the agility of how you maintain that metadata and how you can tweak it, how fast you can tweak it, that is in my opinion decisive. Yeah. So that's why I think hard coding an MCP server may not be the right way. No. I think it would be better to detach the metadata so you can update it. outside code.
Yeah, but it's a new role, right? Being like an MCP, because it was news to me. I worked with APIM, but I didn't know the flexibility of like spinning up the MCP based on the APIs in APIM. I was more into like building MCP service as you should stand alone, really. But it opens up a new like ballpark. Same as we as Dynamics consultants, right? We end up in situations now where we are expected to be experts, but no one is an expert yet on age. There are many experts, of course, but it's a new area to explore, and from a domain knowledge perspective, it can become kind of a tricky gray area, right? Same with the MCP service because APIM would be something you put on integration developers. You manage our APIs, right? But now they need to also manage the MCPs, and it becomes pretty much a new role, right? Because you might need to understand more about the process than you normally expect an integration architect to do. It's a vast new world, and it's ever changing. It's what I'm saying. So we're not only looking at it technically, we need to think about who will manage these things. Who is the MCP owner?
That's a whole digital of functions and roles that you require in that domain, which you open up now.
Exactly.
Because I was attending a session yesterday about 365 Agent. Right? Yeah. That's a new tool which was originally used by Microsoft internally. Yeah. But now it's actually the bridge to security, to enterprise secure your agents, to ensure that. So originally the term shadow IT was reigning. Now the term shadow AI.
Exactly. Yeah.
So people can build agents in hours or days. So how do you keep it in control? Yeah. And then it has a relationship with Defender, with Intune. Yeah. There's so much to it. Everybody needs to find it out. There's so many parameters.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why I can imagine that customers think like, I don't want to maintain it myself. I don't want to have it in my tenant. I give it to Microsoft, software as a service. But that comes with a cost, right? Yeah. The cost of license, but also the cost of flexibility. Yeah. So it's weighing pros and cons, and I think I see more and more customers move toward the use of Azure API Management as a
base layer,
professional enterprise-ready management layer. It's also enterprise secure.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
It supports throttling, which is also important.
Perfect with Dynamics, exactly.
Yeah. So there are lots of benefits, and it's actually kind of low code because the policies in there can now easily be updated with the use of Claude Code or anything else. You can CI/CD it. Yeah. So the overhead, which it was kind of recognized by the community, is getting lower and lower, but the benefits are increasing because now you can use it for MCP as well.
Yeah, exactly. It ties it together.
But it's MCP light. Yeah. Because I was at a meeting. There they went into the roadmap of MCP because MCP is a protocol. It's actually also moving forward. And that's where they build an MCP from the ground full blown. And then you can also define prompts. There are way more functions
within the MCP exactly that you can leverage. Yeah.
And that's not available yet in API Management. But what I found out is that I think for most customers, those features are not required. So if you compare a full-blown MCP to the light edition, which comes out when you convert your APIs to MCP on APIM, then it's even a better business case.
Yeah, and it's a maturity thing, right? Business are in different areas of maturity with their AI adoption, right? So most likely it doesn't really matter if they don't have the latest and greatest for most customers, I would actually say, right? And the commerce use case, again, going back to that one, is so perfect because, as we said, you already have the control in place within your API. So by just exposing them through APIM, you have even more control because then, as you say, you have throttling capabilities, you have control of the layer, and then spinning up the MCP on top of that. That's a good area to start exploring AI use cases if you haven't done them already, because you have the control. The agents might formulate things differently, but if you built it correctly, they won't be able to mess things up using the Commerce APIs and the control that we have within Commerce. I think that's a good use case.
Yeah, you kind of maximize the software as a service component.
Yeah, exactly.
And the component that needs flexibility, which starts with the MCP tool definition. Yeah. That's what you keep in your own tenant, in your own control. And the cool thing about this whole architecture for commerce is that if you build your own front end, you still want to build your own e-commerce platform where you want to consume these APIs in Shopify or in Adobe Commerce or whatever, in a hybrid setup. You can do it by tapping into the API layer, and if you want agents to use the same underlying,
it's just more described, exactly. So
stable framework, then you take the MCP cherry on the cake. But
you have both, exactly.
Under the hood, it's still utilizing the same API.
Exactly, still the same performance.
That's what people don't realize yet, or some people, that MCP is actually API plus.
Yeah.
It has some.
Yes, it's basically an API with descriptions.
Yes.
It's a instruction manual.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Of course.
It's an API with an instruction manual.
The MCP guys, they will tell you that it's
it's more.
Way more than that, and it's also moving forward into a very sophisticated
protocol.
Protocol, yes. So I think it will remain because there are also lots of statements online.
Yeah, it seems like the MCP won that. The battle of. I don't even know what. There are many other protocols, of course, that LLMs can understand, but MCP seems to be the winner here when it comes to adoption, I would say. So the time is kind of running out. But looking in the future, or in the AI world here, future might mean just a week ahead, right? But but future tomorrow morning, or like an hour from now, something new has shifted. But where do you see commerce going from an AI adoption perspective, like near future? Any takeaways?
Yeah. So in my vision, I also shared that in other chats. I think agentic commerce will break out of the corporate enterprise boundaries. Meaning, if we shop now, then we visit a website or a web shop, and we start clicking things together, adding the basket or things to the basket, etc. But in the future, that UX, I think, will kind of disappear.
Yeah.
I mean, they have already launched and discussed the ACP protocol, which is the agentic commerce protocol, which basically means that you can have agents that purchase things for you instead with a protocol.
Yeah.
So coming back to your question, that public-facing capability, exposing the products that you are able to sell, either yourself or through sub parties, that will become more important. So opening up those APIs, to actually expose, will become more important. So eventually, back to your point, you will have an app, and you're actually not knowing who is going to source or fulfill.
No, exactly. A personal shopper agent, and it just connects to anyone who has this ACP enabled, and you have maybe a global payment ID or something like that that handles all the payments, and then it's just brand agnostic. You might see the brand in the app, right? But then you need to really be aware, as a company, you need to be there in that list of companies supporting it, right? That's the whole point. But that sounds like a reasonable future. Very maybe 2 weeks from now. We'll see.
So you need to hand your credit card over to the agents.
I already did a long time ago. They have all my payment information. I don't know. I just have to remember to look at it once a month and see.
What did they buy this time?
Yeah, and I have kids as well, so I need to scrutinize that anyway with controls.
I heard this discussion, this story the other day, that someone actually had like an open claw set up at home, and it was listening in on their chats with his wife, and his wife told him that we have a problem with the sink in the kitchen. So the open claw picked it up, and it actually ordered a carpenter coming to fix it, a handyman coming to fix it. So he just showed up on the doorstep and was like, "I'm going to fix your sink." Okay, who ordered that?
Who's listening in?
Yeah, exactly.
So apparently the agent actually had access to credit card or to like contact information. So it actually called a carpenter. I mean, it's a great idea. I mean, don't get me wrong, I would really like to have an agent which I can tell the sink is not working. Could you just fix it? But it's also extremely scary because we are not there yet from a maturity perspective.
And then as a company, if you leverage Commerce and Dynamics, going back to tie it together, baby, ensure that you have these controls in place to avoid these scenarios that you don't want customers to experience. Then you're probably at least safer to start elaborating with these things, because then the agent can only do so much as the agent is allowed to do. That I think would be the takeaway from this, that don't be scared, but ensure that you have your controls in place.
Yeah, the whole framework, the stable, rock-solid framework is
exactly.
there.
Yeah.
You only need just that flexible topping, the topping layer.
Exactly.
And that's what we outlined today.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Patrick, for joining us
today. Thank you very much.
Looking forward to connect again in the future. And again, the future is very, very close.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.